family, all your family. If you could tell it to them, you can tell it to us. All right? So, yeah, you have a question? I'm great before we start to talk. What? I knew that. I just didn't want to acknowledge him because he needs to come to my house and organize. And it's getting worse. Every time I see him, it's getting worse and worse and worse. All right. But at any rate, Greg, the owner of Maestro Organizing, is going to kick off tonight's story.
All right. It's an honor to be sponsoring the Story Slam. I love this. I look forward to it every month. My name is Greg Gilpin. I'm actually a composer and a conductor, and I'm a professional organizer, and that is why the name is Maestro Organizing. I've got a few cards out there. If you feel disorganized, clutter, lots of things like that, pick up a card, give me a call. I looked up the word charm because I was thinking, how can I relate to this? I can relate. The power or quality of giving delight. So then I looked up what makes a person, or what is a charming person. Number one, you are sincere. Number two, you are attentive. Number three, you are patient. Number four, you have a positive attitude. Number five, you are inquisitive. Number six, you don't pass judgment. Number seven, you have an open mind. Number eight, you praise others. Number nine, you are composed even in difficult situations. And number 10, you are highly considerate of the other person. I hope, as a professional organizer, that I am that way to my clients, and I hope that I'm like that as a human being. So welcome tonight.
I have some very charming people in my family. Both of my younger brothers are quite charming. Every once in a while, I get to go out with them and watch as they try to talk to a young lady. And as the evening wears on, my mouth goes to the point where someone else at the table says, close your mouth. We have a saying about my brother John, that he could charm the draws off of Mother Teresa. That's how charming they both are. I'll tell you a few more things as the night wears on, things that I could tell that aren't X-rated. Now I have this lime basket. Usually it's blue. They change colors on me, Easter colors. And I reach in, and the first thing I pulled out, oh, I'm so happy to hear, is a story from Bailey Schaefer. Now we have a timekeeper, we have scorekeepers, and Miss Ophelia will actually raise her phone up with a light on it to let you know we reached 4 minutes. All right.
I was just trying. Please bear with me. This is, well, not my first time, but it sounds like my first time because I'm always nervous. Hope it's okay. Hope it's okay that I'm reading from my sheet a little. Why there are no mirrors in this house? There were ways she looked at herself, precariously, at a tilt, fretful glances which held her gaze in that mirror's confines, typically longer than she preferred. Swatches of yellow, patches of red, dark, waning circles of purple. These were the colors that adorned her, not in fabric, but in emotion. She tried to look at them as constellations, as though they were an interconnected spectacle, meant to encompass the cosmic expanse far above. But as it was with anything she aspired to, perhaps it was a beauty standard. Perhaps it was something else, some unreachable occupation that was always too far away. Nothing hopeful held true. Even the amber glow of optimism, weaving a hand through her mother's delicately done braids, knowing just in that touch how loved a person can be, leaves her wondering. Who will I be? What image or shard of dignity can I maintain when there is no one left to guide me? Are influences carved within me, absent of their own music, all I am? The scars do more than look peculiar, far more than cause insensitivity and questions to arise, far more than simply cast her out into a slumber of emotional disarray. She fears the feelings, the way she looks, are her. Her limitations, like a sequence of menacing apparitions that comb through her better conversations, analyzing everything. Her improved listening skills, that occasional look in the mirror that doesn't summon her innermost negativity to the surface. As she stared into the reflective glass, it became fact in her irrational mind. Nothing hopeful held true.
Are there people standing? That was 2 seats. Okay, stand. I don't know. Trying to keep how long to go over.
Oh, okay. Humanity's ore. Sunlight collided with the brass stairway railing. Meticulousness is seen in every metal curvature of cluttered histories. Is it the floral wallpaper telling of physical luxury or the spiritual legacy so many hold dear, knowing you belong, that you are never far, but always near? The mountainous doubt cleared of that mist, disposed like children's untold fears, and yet we circle back. What depth of longing is denied when choices are made, but others decide? We peel back the gnarled bark, once layered, now bared to a splintery thicket of steadfast sod and wood. The cultural universal remains and beckons to everyone in the room. You know things that you shouldn't. There are feelings and fears that we all process. All souls know the arrival of an indifferent winter sky, though not all advocate for each other like they should, even with warmth and hope applied. Every touch of adamant care, releasing oneself from the dominant stare of doubts about oneself, about the world that must be changed, rather than concealed and rearranged. These shared worlds and roads that have gone, arduous and long as they were, are taken for granted, but even now are unsure. Veiled in asphalt gray, the flakes descend in a blur, glimpse its tatters now, their undulations, where human ties are severed and restitched. Vulnerability hushed to a mournful sigh, clamors echoed off the withered walls of our lives. Many who live subconsciously, bystanders to hatred, bleak optimism filters into the nefarious core, hollowed of sentiment and emotional conscience, despite what the heart and mind bridge themselves to feel in the moment and now. Lives stolen are not just a token of the peace that has yet to be. Indeed, they are voices from the ore of humanity that have chosen to speak to us before.
Remember, baby with the blue eyes. Okay. Now, don't forget, we have these blank slips of paper right here. You can always fill them out. These, and I'll talk to you about the yellow forms later. Charm. I thought about that term. Charm. You know, I have some special charms that I have to wear all the time. Like, I collect elephants, and I have elephants that are really special to me. And they could be called charms, but most of them are big elephants. I have elephants made out of pecan. I have elephant statues that are linked together. Most of them have their trunks up high. Anyway, I still had 5 boxes of elephants that I packed up out of my last job because all of a sudden they decided that you couldn't have anything like elephants decorating the library. So those 5 boxes went in to my garage. I retired in 2012, but I still haven't opened up that box because let me tell you, I had more elephants at home. But one day I got up to go to work and somehow the elephant on my necklace fell into the sink. I don't know how the necklace became undone, but it fell into the sink and I stopped because my girlfriend Jody's Aunt Letty gave me that elephant. And that elephant meant a lot to me. So I called the school and said, look, I can't come today. My elephant has fallen into the sink. And the secretary who answered said, now CB, come on now. Is there anybody else at your house? I said, no. She said, well, put some newspaper in the sink so nobody will use it. And you come on to work. And when you get home, you can have somebody take that elbow out and the elephant will be down there. Well, she made good sense. So I went on to work because I was dressed anyway. Went on to work and sure enough, when I came home, that elephant was right there in the trap. And my friend Melvin took it apart and gave me my elephant back. And I'm wearing it to this very day. Now, I don't know if the charm is lucky for me or not. I've always had on this necklace, this bracelet, and this jewelry whenever I hit the jackpot. Keep the charm with me. Well, hey, I just pulled the name that's going to tell us our next story about charms. That's Mike Collins.
I'm telling the story, but it's not being judged.
We're judging.
I get judged enough as it is. Okay. But speaking of which, I've always been a nerd, complete and utter nerd to the core and back again. And that has to do with a lot of things in my life, including dating. So, for example, when you want to have a date with somebody, you're expected to be charming. You're expected to be Prince Charming, riding in on the horse. And when you're an utter dork like me, it's more like, okay. But imagine that you're out in a bar in Philadelphia about, at this point, 17 years ago. And by the way, it's a gay bar, okay? Just let me know. And being the dork that you are sitting in the back of a gay bar reading. Seriously, that is what I would do. I would be bored, want to be out around people, but not bothered. So I'd take a book to the bars and read. That's how dorky I am. And with my lack of charm, so to speak. Okay? So I still remember that I was reading the Belgariad 17 years ago. So I'm reading and I look up. And there's somebody. Oh my goodness. And I'm going to ask that person if they want to talk to me. Okay. So being the dork, the things that run through your mind are, how do you be charming? Okay. First, there's, and I'll use a quote from a movie so you know what I'm talking about. There is the, you could be utterly charming and do the, my name is Nego Montoya. Or you could do the, come on to them strongly. My name is Nego Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. And that's how I was working it up. But then you have to be the utter charming, utter loving person. My name is Inigo Montoya. Prepare to die. Who gets the quote? Who gets the quote? Princess Bride. I know, Princess Bride. So that's what I was going to do. I was going to be utterly charming. So what do? I walk out onto the side of the dance floor where this person's talking to somebody, and I go, which one do I do? Which one do I do? Which one do I do? I'm like, would you like to dance? And right at that moment, Breathe by Faith Hill starts. And I hear, no, I don't want to dance with you. Well, Inigo Montoya stepped in. Oh, I think you do. I don't want to dance with you. Inigo Montoya stepped in again. Well, you don't want to dance with me? Too bad. And the power lifter picked him up, carried him 10 feet, locked him down on the dance floor and said, you do now. Would you like to dance? And the look of horror on his face. And then we danced around the floor. And Inigo Montoya charmed him. And 13 years ago, he became mine. And that's my husband, and how we met.
I was holding my breath. Oh, it's gonna be a fight. Even though I knew that story already, it gets me every time. Thank you, Mike. Well, we thought we'd just let our scorekeepers and timekeepers just take a breath. I know that might make you think of another story, so don't hesitate to ask for a slip of paper and we'll put your name on it. Ross Carlin, come on down. You're the next seller.
Hi all, I'm Ross Carley. I am a part-time author, part-time consultant in cybersecurity, and I have written 5 books. Will and the kind people here stock all of my books. This is my latest one called The Three-Legged Assassin, writing a sequel to it now. But what I'm going to tell you tonight is a story basically totally unrelated. Well, it can't be unrelated because everything that's happened in my life goes into my books. And you will see some of the personalities of some of my characters coming out here, I hope. I served in the Oxymoron Agency, that's military intelligence, in during the Mideast War and the 6-Day War. And I was stationed in Sinop, Turkey, which is about as isolated as you can possibly get. We were over there for a year, and we were just totally isolated. So this is this story I call The Perilous Charmed Purchase. And I was determined to, I'm going to refer to notes. I didn't know that this was supposed to be totally oral. If I come back, I'll be totally oral, but I've got it. I know the story, I wrote it, I lived it, but I do want to refer to my notes a little bit. I decided I'd learned a language. I was reasonably fluent in French, but I wanted to learn Turkish. But I didn't want to be totally fluent in Turkish. My preference was just to be able to carry on conversations, order food, know the difference between yes and no, and so on. So I started studying the language and going down to the village of Sinop. Our army post, Tuslov Det Fort, it was called, was located on top of an extinct volcano about 300 feet above the little village of Sinop, Turkey. And if you look on your maps today, we were directly across the Black Sea from the Russian Crimea. Just so that'll put you in context. So within a few months of arrival in Turkey, I was able to, I could count to 100. I knew the difference between yes and no. Oh, and when you're in Turkey, if you say goodbye, and I'm leaving and you're staying, it's alles maledik. And if you're staying and they're leaving, it's gule gule. So there are different goodbyes in Turkish. I also learned the difference between the different shades of bad. Bad is fena. Very bad is çok fena. Just as very good as choki. Very, very, very bad is daha fena. Now you can put curse word in between daha and fana, and you can guess what Turkish cab drivers would say when they got cut off in traffic. So occasionally the Turkish gendarme commander would take, I was a lieutenant, and occasionally the gendarme commander of the Turkish gendarmerie there would take us down into the village and take us around the Saturday market. I really loved the Turkish fruit. The big oranges, they were bigger than grapefruit, and they're called portakals in Turkish. And so I was determined I was going to buy some portakals, but I wanted the gendarme commander to come along with me and help haggle the price down. You never pay asking price in the Turkish market. But I figured he'd be able to get a better price than I would. So he was very nice, spoke great English, came along with me, and was standing by my side. And I looked over the portakals, and the fruit vendor had all kinds of fruit there, and it was a big stand, and this fruit vendor was sitting up on a high stool behind the fruit. I looked at it, and I changed my mind at the last minute. The peaches were just incredible. And so I decided I was going to get peaches instead of portakals, but I didn't know the Turkish word for peach. So I just pointed at him, and they were right next to the vendor, by the way, right against his stomach. And I point at it and I say, peach. He came flying off his stool. He upset the entire cart of fruit and came at me like he was going to kill me. And luckily, the gendarme commander stepped in between us. He put his hand on his sidearm, and he fluently told the guy to back off, handed him 20 lira, and steered me away, getting me out of trouble. And he said to me, do you know that the Turkish word for bastard is peach? And it is pronounced exactly as you pronounce peach in English. And he said, not only did you call him a bastard, but you're pointing at him, and he said, you just totally humiliated him. So I felt like that day, I call it my charmed purchase. If he hadn't been there, I'm not sure what would have happened. But as it was, I went home with some very nice peaches.
So the moral of the story is be careful who you call a peach. Hey, I just want another name. The name is Donna Jones. Come on down and tell us a story about charm. And if you want to tell a story, it's not too late.
Now, this is a little tale about the most charming person that I've ever had the pleasure or displeasure to know. That person is my father. My mother was a most pragmatic woman, having been born in 1925. She grew up during the Depression in a large family that migrated here from Stockbridge, Georgia. Now, she had to do without a lot of things when she was a young girl growing up. And pretty much as an adult, she decided she was not going to put up with much. But somehow, my father managed to charm that woman. I don't know how he did it. I used to see it in operation all the time. When my dad died in 2003, I was calling women around the country to let them know. Yeah, that he was gone. Sorry about your luck. But this one particular instance that I'm going to relate right now involves a Springer Spaniel. My cousin Carla and her husband and 2 children were living in a 3-bedroom ranch house. They had a driveway, fence all the way around the yard. Gate was always open, so they could just drive in and out as often and as regular as they pleased. That dog never left the yard. I know. Because when her second child was born, I used to stop by there every day after work to play with the baby. Dog never left the yard. One day, my father was there. He had stopped by. I was there. Dog never left the yard. The dog saw my father coming. My father was a very dapper man. He worked for Indiana Bell in a warehouse and always wore a leather sole shoe on a concrete floor. Always wore a hat or a cap. The dog, seeing my father coming, runs to the end of the fence to the gate, turns, comes out of the gate, and is like, oh, I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy you're here. Oh, I'm so excited. The dog never left the yard until that day. That is how charming Herbert Owen Jones was. And that is a show enough true story.
Thank you, Donna Jones. I was charming indeed. And he was very dapper dude. Listen, you know this is a free event, and we're glad you're here. This is a free event because of all the grants we received. And we will not turn down a donation if you would like to make one. You can just text 44321 with SAI in the text. And we promise we will divide the donations equally between Freetown Village and Storytelling Arts in Indiana. But now, there's another piece of paper on your table. It's bright yellow, so it catches your eye. And we would like for you to complete our survey because you could win complimentary tickets to one of our upcoming storytelling shows. As a matter of fact, this Saturday, the one and only Patrick Ball, who plays a Celtic harp and tells Irish tales, will be at the Indiana History Center. And the information we collect from these surveys, we use to help us write even more grants for more free programs. And I'm going to reach deep down into this lime green basket and pull out somebody's name. But remember, if you think of a new one, just come on down. My name next is Samantha Powers.
All right. Plan on going at the end. So. All right. When most people think about charm, they think charming, Prince Charming, a romantic interest of sorts. I would say odds are people probably don't immediately think of their mother-in-law. I do. That's because you don't know my mother-in-law. She is pretty special. So last week, after a particularly difficult and traumatic weekend for my husband and I, we decided we were going to go to Colorado to ski with our family. And the closer this trip got, the more excited we were. We needed to get away, get out of our heads, and just go down the slope with no cares in the world. The day finally came when it was my turn to ski. I hesitantly handed over my toddler daughter to my husband and said, "See ya," and I went out to the ticket counter. Can you believe that lift prices now are over $200 for one ski day? Yeah, that's how badly I needed this day. So I purchased my ski lift ticket and I stomped over to go get my ski gear. I walked in and the man says, "What are you here for?" I said, "Skis, poles, a helmet, and boots." And he said, "No, you're not. You came during Denver public school spring break. There is not any ski gear for rent day of within the 40-mile radius." I immediately started to cry. If I had a biography, it would be titled, "And Then I Cried." I turned to my husband. He has panic in his eye because he just knows how badly this is going to go. He looks at his mom. He says, "Mom, there is no ski gear. Sam cannot go skiing." She says, "I'm going to make some calls." He goes, "Mom, you don't understand. In a 40-mile radius, that man said there is no ski gear to be rented." She said, "No, I don't believe him. I'm going to make some calls." So she turns around, and about 5 minutes later, she looks at me and she said, "Got it." So walked over with her several feet away from the one rental store. That man was full of it, and rented ski gear, probably the best ski gear I've ever used in my entire life. Now, at the time, I was just excited to get back on the slopes. But as I was riding the ski lift up next to my mother-in-law, I kept thinking to myself, you know, in a tough time, most people want to be there right next to their spouse, tackling it head on. And I do too. If I'm on a tough situation, yeah, I want my spouse there. But oddly enough, I also want his mom. Oh, yeah.
I know her mother-in-law, and she's right. She picked the right one. Listen, we will cut those little yellow slips later on, but I know that as you listen to these stories, you've got enough to tell that you can tell. It's not too late. I haven't
Well, I'm
heard
trying to
the
pull
yet
up
or
most
drink
of
a
the
glass
things
of
off.
wine, so we got plenty of time. But right now, we're gonna listen to Tim Decker. Tim?
Well, this is another language-related story, as the other gentleman told. In 1968, I was in the Air Force, and I was sent to study North Vietnamese, the Hanoi dialect. Now, fast forward 2 years, and I land in Saigon. My first day in Saigon, they speak the Southern dialect, or the Saigon dialect. So I had to get a few things from the base exchange, which is like your all-around store. So I walk into the store, and there are half a dozen or more people lined up at the checkout. And behind the checkout is this beautiful Vietnamese. And I'm much younger at that time. And so I look at her, and all of these guys are trying to be so charming and talk to her. And they're trying to use a little language here and there. And I'm just sitting back there, and I thought, oh my God, they're just a disaster. They don't know what they're doing. And I'm looking there, I said, this is going to be great for me when I go up and talk to this young lady. She's just
drop dead. So I finally worked my way up there. And I pull out my best Vietnamese and I'm talking to her. And immediately she just, and boy, now my chest is like this. Oh gosh. So I start rattling on and on and on. And I'm going, I can't even remember what all I was saying. And finally, after seemed like minutes, she looks at me and in English she replies, "Oh, you speak very beautiful. What language do you speak?" So that was a little bit lady. She at least after spending 2 years in language school. But of course, like I said, she knew the Saigon. So now we fast forward about 10 or 12 years. I'm in a small town in southern Indiana, Seymour, Indiana. My wife and I had just gotten married, and there were a number of boat people that had come to Seymour through the auspices of the Catholic Church. We were attending Mass on Pentecost Sunday. And I don't know if you know the story of Pentecost Sunday, but that's when it said that the apostles could go out and speak in tongues and they all these languages. So as we're sitting there in church, in the Catholic Church, you go up in file for communion. So after communion, I see this woman come in the aisle, and she has the traditional alzai, the Vietnamese dress. Some call them pajama bottoms with a tunic over it, and she's wearing the bui cow, the high hat, and just a strikingly beautiful older woman. You know, she was grandmother. And so she walks by and I look at her and I said, I haven't spoken Vietnamese for years and years. So when we're exiting church, I look for her and I see her. And so immediately I go up to her and I start speaking Vietnamese. Back on me. She starts bowing to me. She turns around. She's walking backwards down the aisle to speak to me. And I told her how beautiful she looked, and this, and how nice it was that she was here. At that time, she was just astonished, and I wasn't sure what her reaction was. And when we got out, my wife said, "Do you know what happened?" I said, "I'm not sure." She said, "Well, the priest had spoken that day about how the apostles, the Holy Spirit descended upon them, and they could all speak different languages in person." And she thought the Holy Spirit had struck me.
Now we're going to come through with some more ink pens in case you need them to complete your yellow slips, because I forgot to tell you the reason I wanted to collect those later. We'll be giving out free tickets to the next couple of performances. So you could be there on Saturday night. Let me mix these up. I want everybody to have equal opportunity to stand up in front and tell all the stories they possibly want to tell. Now, you might want to know that next month we'll be at Jamaica Breeze on Keystone Avenue, and the topic will be fashion. Prairie? How come you only got one name?
I did it my last year.
Okay, come on down, Prairie. Prairie or prairie?
Prairie,
Yeah.
the fields.
On the prairie.
Well, I am nervous.
But I don't know, I guess now at 23, if I had to choose the word that most captures me, I would have to choose sentimental. It is a superpower almost, how much feeling I can inject into an item or a totem or a charm. In fact, I remember when I was, like 7 or 8 maybe, I loved horses. And I've always loved animals way more than people. I used to have pictures of framed random cats just hanging in my childhood bedroom. And yeah, I loved horses. And when I was maybe around 7, I had this charm bracelet. Had these colorful beads on it. And I don't even remember who gave it to me, but every charm was a horse and it was painted a different way. And I loved that bracelet. And when I love something, I love it. And same goes for the other way around. Intensity has never been lost on me. And I didn't really know that the color gray existed until recently. Do you think that you can be good at mourning? You know, maybe it's an age thing, but I've only been to like 3 funerals. And anyways, when I was 15, I got a new charm bracelet. The one with the horses flew off the hood of my grandma's car when we were driving because I forgot that I put it there. And it was a nominations bracelet. You guys remember those from the 90s with like the little metal charms that link together? I made it in the garage of my high school best friend. Her parents would collect the charms and sell them at garage sales for like 25 cents a piece. And my nominations bracelets have to be 16 charms long. And one of them I'd even had since I was about 5. It had Mickey Mouse on it, and I got it during my very first trip to Disney World. And I loved that bracelet. It was like an extension of me. And sometimes I think about when people get casts taken off after a long time after they've broken a bone. Do they miss it? Healing in such a confined space? Because sometimes it feels good just to be held by something. But I don't know. The older that I get, the less that I think I know anything about anything. And I can't help but think all the time about how every single thing that I love and cherish is just an appetizer one day to my body as dinner for the worms. I don't know. I write down every single thought that I have. And when a feeling is fleeting, I try to reach up and tuck it under my pillow. Doing something for the 5th time is way easier than doing it for the first time. And I think about when people go into comas and have to relearn their native language. There's nothing worse than forgetting about something that you've lost. Sorry, I got a little nervous. I don't know. Anyways, I got another charm bracelet. I lived in Chicago and it was this other nominations bracelet. It was another extension of me and I loved that bracelet. And I think about all the pieces of me scattered all around the earth, all the things that I never want to forget, because I don't want to forget anything, like ever. But who do I tell all of these things that I don't want to forget? All of the pieces of me that only I could remember. My charm bracelet at the bottom of Lake Michigan. And I wasn't mad at my friend for losing it, for drinking way too much wine on the beach and breathing in the beauty of the city and the sunset. Sometimes things are supposed to become buried. But sometimes I would forget that it was lost and I would ransack my bathroom and my dresser drawers. I would ask people, hey, have you seen my bracelet? And then, oh yeah.
But a charm bracelet is small in the grand scheme. And the memory with my friends that day on the beach, that wasn't small at all. The memory of making that bracelet in the garage with my friend, that wasn't small either. So I guess all of this to say that in the charm bracelet of life, there is no charm equal to tenderness in your heart, to surrender, to closing your eyes at the end of a long day, having no idea what you're gonna lose when the sun comes up. And anyways, I got another charm bracelet this year for Christmas, and one day I am going to lose it. I'm going to leave it in a hotel room or leave it on the windowsill of an apartment that I'm moving out of, and I am going to grieve and mourn and cry. And I'm going to say thank you to the charm bracelet of my life for all of these lessons that I will and will never, ever learn. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll never look at a charm bracelet again. What's that expensive lady that makes all those charm bracelets, Pandora, or, you know, I will only buy costume jewelry from here on out. I have new respect. Okay. I pulled the name before I stood up this time. Hey, Tristan.
Growing up in my grandma's house, her lucky charm were like metallic and ceramic ducks. They were everywhere. Hundreds, I think maybe she had at least 600 of these things on a back shelf that she had in her house. And she ended up passing away a couple of years ago. And while we're cleaning out her collection, my mom says to me, and I quote, "Why the hell did she have this hobby? Why were these important to her?" And I was thinking to myself, why do we collect things that are sentimental to us? What is our Lucky Charms that we have in our lives? Not only are Lucky Charms an incredible cereal, but they are important to how we perceive our days sometimes. For some people, that's a lucky rabbit's foot on a keychain. For some people, that is a lucky shirt. And for me, today, it's these bracelets because I don't take them off. But for when I was in high school, it was something very, very different. When I was in high school, I joined a team. And the team that I was a part of wasn't a sports team. I did that on the side. It wasn't like a speech team. The team I joined was Fisher's High School Show Choir, and it was intense. When I was a sophomore, I didn't know what I was going to get into with my life, and they told me, "Tristan, we're gonna go shopping for a tradition that they were starting that year that was gonna be their lucky charm." What was that lucky charm? Every performance for the entirety of me in high school, I wore metallic, shiny underwear under my costumes. Don't ask me why. At first, I was like, I went and I bought them for like $14.99. These were not like cheap underwear. Like it was a paycheck, right? And I bought these, and I was really confused. And I was like, I swear to God, if I'm the only one wearing these, because I'm new, right? I'm new. But it turned out that even after the people that I bought them with graduated, I still wore them. There's a picture out there somewhere with all of us wearing them. It's weird. But that was my lucky charm for my performances. I'm also a martial artist. And while I don't wear the shiny underwear under my uniform, I still have my black belt. And that, to me, is my lucky charm to not only myself, but also my students. Every day that they see that I have 3, possibly 4 soon, gold bars on my martial arts belt, that this is the journey in my personal lucky charm. Now, it might not be as cool as metallic and ceramic ducks that are in the back of my house, but it's my important and lucky charm to me, and I bet you all can relate with lucky charms that you have for you. Thank you.
I'm not sure I've ever seen shiny underwear. But Tristan, I'm gonna look for some, okay? Okay, let me check this up and pull up another name. Tom Corbett, come on down.
Hi, everybody. Before I start, I do want to thank everybody for coming out, for telling your stories. They've been awesome. So I'm going to tell you about a charming, I don't know if I'd be talking about the town or the young lady that we met in the town. So my son and I were traveling several years ago with some extended family. So this was on a Saturday morning. We were in Rome. We had to come out of the apartment that we had rented for the week, walk to the subway station, take the subway to the train station, and then we got on our train finally. And on the train, we had breakfast on the dining car. And that was still, I'd say, if I had to guess, 9 in the morning by then. So from Rome, we were traveling to Lucerne in Switzerland. And that ended up being, normally it'd be about a 9-hour train ride. It ended up being longer. They had some issues with the train. We had a little extra time at a few stops. And if you've ever taken a train, that was one of my first times. I didn't realize how often you'll pull into a station, you'll wait, pick other people up, maybe lose some cars, pick up some cars, and then go. And so that was a long day. We had some snacks with us, but we hadn't planned on taking that long to get to Lucerne. We'll do dinner in Lucerne. So we finally got into Lucerne. It was late at the train station and everything was closed. We were all pretty hungry. So from Lucerne, we had another 45-minute train ride up the mountain to a town called Engelberg. If you ever get to Lucerne and Engelberg, Switzerland, very charming area. That's why I'm telling this story. So we rolled into Engelberg finally, and it had to be pushing 9 o'clock by then, 9 p.m. And we were renting an apartment. And so we had a driver drive us up the mountain to where we were, got settled in real quick, met the woman who was our host. And then we decided, well, we'll walk back down into town, see what's open, and have dinner. And she told us that about the only thing that would be open was the restaurant at the hotel in town. So it was about a 20-minute walk back down to town that with us probably took longer. So it was about 10 minutes till 10. We got to the hotel, got into the restaurant area. And I walked up to the hostess and, asked how late they were open. And told her that we'd been traveling all day. We were pretty hungry. They had just closed the kitchen. They weren't busy. They closed at 10 anyway. And so it was just us. And they were closed. And so I thought for a minute, well, it's going to be a long night. We've got teenage boys with us. It's going to be a real long night. So I said, hey, if you've got any leftovers, I'll buy them. And then we'll just go on our way. And maybe it was the way I said that in my little bit of broken German, and she was speaking some broken English. But she said, hold on, I'll be right back. And a couple of minutes later, she came back to me. And she said, well, the chef and I will stay and cook for you. I thought, wow. And so we were thinking, okay, that's awful nice. So let's make this fast. And so she seated us and gave us menus. But by then we already decided spaghetti. Spaghetti was something that we could all eat, that hopefully would be fast, not keep them late. We could eat in a hurry, be on our way. And but The interesting thing was they were prepared to stay in traditional. I mean, over there, they sit down to dinner and it's 2 hours. They were prepared to stay. So they brought out a huge bowl of spaghetti for us, family style, meat sauce, bread, asked us what we wanted to drink. So there were some sodas, there was water, but we ate, didn't want to keep them long. And they wrapped up all that food, sent it with us. And so as we were leaving, and for some reason, I remember it was probably around 10 francs, 10 Swiss francs for that meal. And I had a 20 banknote. And so I gave her the 20 banknote. And again, tradition, they don't accept tips. You don't tip. But I told her, please, you and the chef keep it. You did us a great service. I can't thank you enough. And we were already planning to spend that much more on dinners anyway. So she thanked us. And then we made sure midweek, I think it was Wednesday, that we were back during normal time and had a nice long dinner with them. So it was a very charming encounter.
A little more information about our next slam. It will take place April 19th at Jamaica Breeze, which is at 4189 North Keystone. And the topic is fashion. I'll be sure to dress for the occasion. Don't believe it. But our next teller is Andy Myers. Come on in.
All right, guys, so this is my first time speaking in front of this many people, so give me a little bit of a break here. So a couple months ago, I decided to go to a bar in downtown Indy called Tin Roof in hopes of finding someone special to work my charm. So it's been a while since I've been out to a bar, so I was like, okay, I got to work on my game a little bit, get back into it, get confident. So I worked on everything, and I finally felt confident enough to go out. So I leave for Tin Roof, and as soon as I get there, walk in the door, first girl I see, beautiful brunette girl. Like I'm talking 10 out of 10, beautiful. It's like, yep, that's the one. So I walk up to her. I said, excuse me, miss, do you have a map? Because I just got lost in your eyes. This obviously didn't work. She gave me like this awkward look. She's like, all right, I gotta think of something else. She's too fine. I can't lose this right now. So I said, all right. So you're a magician, because when I look at you, everyone else disappears. Yeah, it's cute. That's what she thought too, so it worked. I was like, yes, my charm worked. So we went on talking for a little bit. I bought her another drink, and we exchanged numbers. So after that, I left. I was very happy. I was like, yes, I scored a 10. Right? It worked. So I go home, go to sleep. Next day, I wake up, get on my phone to text her, try to set up a date. And turns out she gave me the wrong number. So after crying myself back to sleep, I woke up and realized I needed to practice my charm a little bit more. So moral of the story, don't use shitty pickup lines. And always double check the number someone gives you before you do.
Oh, that's what I understand. Old as I am, I know to call the number while it's still there. I understand. Well, let me reach into the line green basket. Now, you know, there's still time if you want to sign up and tell another story, because I'm new. That story jogs your memory. But right now, Jalen Grant, come on down.
just like my good friend Andy, this is my first time telling a story, so bear with me a little bit. I don't think I need this. I can probably stand around here. By any chance, anybody here a Cathedral High School grad? No? Tommy? Oh yeah, I graduated Cathedral High School, which is, what's the word I'm looking for? Coincidentally, the Fighting Irish. Yeah. So, and we're sitting here talking about charm. I played Cathedral High School football for all 4 years, and this is the story of a bad luck charm that the football team had while I was there. And you're probably thinking to yourself, what could it be? Like, you know, a play or like a saying? No, red Gatorade. So when I was a sophomore, I was playing JV, and we had to travel all the way to Cincinnati to play St. Xavier, which is an all-boys school. And when we get to the locker room and we're about to get to the bus, the team moms packed us these breakfasts for us to eat on the way there, for us to get the energy we need to go play. And I didn't know, but I got a bottle of red Gatorade. And the first thing I did when I sat down was I chugged that thing. A couple rows behind me goes, "Damn boy, you must be a warrior." And I go, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Don't you know that 3 people have drank red Gatorade and that season-ending injuries, not the game after?" And I'm like, "Bullshit, give me another one." So a couple of the players started passing around the red Gatorades because they didn't want to get hurt. And during the whole game, I was completely fine. And I was bragging about how this was stupid. This is a stupid thing that you guys were talking about. And we get back we won the game, and we get back, and we're carrying all the equipment and stuff. And little did I know that my cleat was untied. I tripped, and I got up thinking I was fine. And all of a sudden I looked down, and blood was gushing down from my leg. And that is why I will never drink red Gatorade again.
You know what, Dan? I'm not gonna drink it either. Let me reach down the bottom of this bucket. Shannon, it's your turn.
I had no intentions of telling, but Celestine has a way. I've met a lot of celebrities in my life, like weirdly so for a girl from Indiana. And how have I done that? I am hella charming. And also I used to work in news, and I was able to interview a lot of them. I worked in Evansville and I worked here, and a lot of them come through for various reasons. The first time I ever met a celebrity, I met the pinnacle. I was working in Evansville, and we had our Channel 14 Christmas party at the Evansville Country Club. And when I got there, my general manager said, "Meryl Streep is in this building." And I was like, "What?" And they said, "She's here because, as if you know anything about her, her husband's from here, and some big architectural firm had invited them to a Christmas party." So I looked all around the country club, and I realized it must be the door where the security guard is standing. But I have more stamina than him, and I will wait for her. And I did. And I kept drinking White Russians, and everyone's like, "Are you going to spend your party out here?" And I said, "It is Meryl Streep, the greatest actress of our time. Yes." So finally, the door opens, and there she was. And I was like, "Hi, Meryl Streep. My name is Shannon Sampson, and we're having a party here tonight. I'm here for you. Here's a greatest actress." I said all of this in one breath, right? She backed away a little bit. She said, "Oh, you're so nice. And I said, can I get a picture? And she said, sure. And this was back on 35mm camera. And so then someone else got a picture. Well, pretty soon everyone's like, Meryl Streep's in the lobby. And so everyone comes running out. Well, now she's smart enough to run outside at this point, right? So everyone's like, my assistant news director opened the window and was like, Meryl, come back. She got the hell out of there. I was so proud of that picture of me and Meryl Streep. That year for Christmas, I sent out Christmas cards that said, have yourself a Meryl Christmas, or have yourself a very Meryl Christmas, something like that. Well, this caught on. And every year I would try to, I mean, you can't outdo Meryl, but you could get another celebrity. For instance, once I got Eric Estrada. He used to be on this show called Chips. This was pre-Me Too, because upon meeting me, he grabbed me, he completely dipped me, kissed me full on the lips, and he's like, nice to meet you. And I was like, nice to meet you, can I have a picture? That year, it was Mary Chipsmas, which I think is hilarious. So, you know, I mean, there were other ones. I met Vanna White in Las Vegas. I'm dreaming of a Vanna White Christmas. There are ones I wouldn't show anyone because, for instance, I got a picture with Jared Fogle. I mean, who are you going to show that one to? It's like a true crime show, right? I tried to get Dolly Parton once when she made an appearance. Security made me leave. So one of the ones I'm very proud of happened here in Indianapolis. MC Hammer was performing at the State Fair. And so we saw the show, it was great. And he had all the Hammer moves, and you know all the songs, if you're my age. And we were, at the end of the show, we noticed people were going kind of behind the stage. So this guy I was with, we followed them. And they were like, well, this is for friends and family only. And the people in front of us were like, yeah, but we're friends with Pookie. And then we were like, we're friends with Pookie too. And we were like the only white people, so it was probably pretty obvious that we weren't friends with Pookie, but they let us stay in the line. And so we went all the way up, and I was excited to meet MC Hammer. And this is a moment in my life when I was very uncharming, because I was trying to compliment him, and I go, just because he had so much stamina and he just like didn't miss a beat. And he looks, I mean, he was in his prime. And I just go, look at you, Hammer, you're still doing it. And it came off like, you old decrepit man. My goodness, who's pulling your strings. And now that I've turned 50, I realized that that was just a jerky thing to say. I could have been cooler. So that year, of course, and this is what I'm really excited about. Stop, Christmas time. Okay. Thank you.
If I'm only there one time when that happens. Okay, our next teller is Tracy Wynn.
Oh shoot, this story is so not me. Charm was a hard one for me, guys. It was a real hard one for me, but this is the only thing that I could come up with, because we're supposed to tell a true story, right? Okay. Well, you think of, everybody says Prince Charming, and everybody says the charms and the bracelets and the necklace. No, I'm going to tell you a story about when I was about in middle school. And I did look this word up. I looked up charm, and charm says magical or magic and tricks. Well, I'm nothing into magic and not into tricks or anything like that, or so I thought. One day, my mother and I were at the grocery store, and we were in the car, and I don't know why she was sitting in the car taking so long to get out to do whatever it is she had to do. Well, there was a boy in the parking lot and he was gathering the carts. You know, they didn't have the little corrals that they had then. The boys had to go out and get them and take them all the way back up into the store. And she looked back at me and she said something to the effect of, "Tracy, stop vamping that boy." And I said, "Vamping? I'm not, I'm watching you, girl." Well, I didn't know what she was talking about, but apparently I was doing something with my eyes. And so later on, as I got older and went to high school, and no, I think past high school, maybe in college is where really I said, let me see if this vamping charm is really something. So I would position myself, and you know, back in the day, because I'm older than all of these guys. Anyway, you didn't go up to the guys really and ask them to dance or call them over or just, you know, get close to them. You just wait for them to come to you so you could have a pretty boring night. Anyway, I decided I'm gonna try this. And so I would work my eyes. I'd see some fella across the room and I say, let me see if this vamping thing is gonna work. That's charm. And I look at them and sometimes it worked. They would come to me because I was a hot little number back then, okay? Maybe not now, but back then I was. And it didn't always work, but sometimes it did work. And they would come over and talk to me and I was happy. And when it didn't work, then I just sat there bored for the rest of the evening. This is gonna be a quick story. Now I'm older. I still can go out and party and have a good time, but there's one thing that stops me from using that vampy charm. I'm married.
That's because you're still hot, Tracy, and your husband's not having none of that. All right. Uh-oh. Champ, you thought I'd never call your name. Come on down.
So Celestine mentioned early on having people tell her she was charming. That's happened to me too. The time it happened may have been a case of calculating flattery I should have seen through and not let go to my head. These things are always clearer in hindsight. Anyway, it led to a couple interesting years and a pretty good story about a spoon at a buffet and an incident in a car on the way to an audition. Our local civic theater was casting for Company, the Sondheim show. She really wanted to try out, and my task was moral support. And the odd thing was, before anybody even knew they'd be doing this show locally, she had already been hard at work to get me to know the show. She lent me the script, emailed me YouTube clips, had me over to see the whole thing on DVD. It seemed possible her aim was for me to reflect on my middle-aged, unmarried state, because that's kind of what the show's about. And as potentially promising as it could be if she was nudging me onto the topic of marriage, I wasn't sure how I felt about her using that show for it. Because if she was thinking of me like Robert in the show skating away from commitment, that I'd have to kind of wonder if she paid real close attention to one thing about my story, like the not married part, and tuned out whole swaths of the rest. Like the way the most momentous love of my first 30 years had been a woman who didn't identify as heterosexual. And I introduced her a little bit in the Story Slam about conversation, fittingly, because that's a story that conversation explains a lot better than charm does. And for all the conversation that we had all those years, very little was about marriage. Back then, you needed just the right combination of parts to qualify.
And technically, we could claim the exact right parts, but that would have felt like finding a loophole. And finding a loophole that so many people we knew had to do without, one way or the other. My sister, like so many, had a purely religious wedding, never mind what the state thought. I have a friend about my sister's age who has been with her partner since I was in 5th grade. They've never pursued marriage or lobbied for it. They didn't think it was necessary for them. I guess it's still possible everything goes to pieces between now and their 50th, but it seems like that's working out for them. At the same time, I have a friend who wrote a blog post 10 years ago wondering why so few of her friends had been reaching out, even just with words of encouragement, during the time when her whole ability to possibly marry was working through the courts. And my sorrow is I wasn't following her blog. I didn't even see that post, and I've never replied to it. And maybe I can now, because I didn't drop a note back then, but my early adulthood choices about marrying were related to knowing that she could not. And by now, of course, that's all just ancient parts of my history, but parts, I guess, I wouldn't mind somebody knowing before comparing me to Robert in that Sondheim show. Remember the Sondheim show? Before all this like 30-year flashback, there was a car on the way to an audition. My task was moral support of this person who was getting increasingly nervous the closer we got there. And the best idea I could muster was distraction. Sing something, nothing to do with the show. Something like, come home, won't you, Bill Bailey, come home, won't you, Bill? And it worked. She remembered her part. She joined right in. The nervousness started slowly fading away. By the time we pulled up, she was doing the cooking, honey. She was paying the rent, all because of this 100-year-old Huey Cannon tune. And I don't know what happened to Greg Gilpin here, but I wanted him to know how his charming arrangement of that old tune saved the day.
Thank you so much, Chad. Listen, I'm gonna be collecting those nice, bright yellow slips, put them in the fishbowl, because we're going to have a drawing. But until then, I'm gonna ask Leandra Radford to come on. All right.
We're giving college high fives, and ironic enough, my story today has to do with some college years. So I was lucky enough to attend Bennett College for Women, which is in Greensboro, North Carolina, for my undergrad. And as one could imagine, going to an all-girls college, you learn very early how to be charming. Well, being charming sometimes comes in handy. It helps you to get some things that you want. And about my junior year, I decided I wanted to do a study abroad. And I went to my college advisor, and I talked to her about, oh, I really just want to do an exchange program. In my mind, I wanted to go to some country in Africa. And that was the goal for me. And I'm not really sure why, but she continued to try to stir me away from that. I later found out she served on the board of another all-female college called Randolph-Macon Women's College, which was in Lynchburg, Virginia. She was more charming than me in that conversation because she won, and I ended up doing an exchange program there. But I loved it. It wasn't like you go to class Monday through Friday and just sit and listen to lectures. This particular program was all about traveling to different places in the United States to learn about what makes up American culture. It was called the American Culture Program. But again, being at an all-girls college, you learn to be charming. And while at Randolph-Macon Women's College, they had all types of opportunities. And they were advertising, taking a group of students to Japan. And I love to travel, so I just really wanted to go anywhere, if the truth be told. And so, but I didn't try to work my charm because I didn't think that it really applied to me, because I knew that I was a guest student on their campus. I was planning to do that semester and then go back and finish my studies at we were in the van one day on our way, ready to go. And one of my professors, who was a professor in theology, asked me, why have you not applied to do the study abroad in Japan? And I said, well, I didn't know that I would even be considered, since I'm not really a student here. And he says, I think you should apply. And he was on the board, so I thought, oh, I took this as I should apply, like he's making decisions, right? So I applied and got denied. And I didn't understand. I was like, wait a minute, what? Why would you put me out there like that? Well, as it turned out, I guess some other students had later applied, and so they were going to take their students. And so I was just set and ready to go, pack my bags, ready to go back home, come back home to Indianapolis at the end of the semester, when my telephone rang, and it was him, and he was telling me that I'm not going to be able to take you as a student, but I will take you as a writer. We wouldn't be able to pay you, but we would pay for your expenses. Are you kidding? I am there, back to back, ready to go. Last minute, working out. And this is my first trip. This is going to be my first time overseas. So I'm working really, really fast, trying to get my passport and all the things that I needed to be able to go, right? So again, first trip overseas. I walk on the plane like I have a box of Lucky Charms in my back pocket. I am ready, I'm happy, I'm excited. I look at my ticket and I learn, at this point, never flown first class. I've flown often, but not first class. And I had my seat was like A, which is right, the first seat before you get to first class. So I'm thinking, I'm getting closer. It's an international flight, so the seats are bigger. I'm so excited. I sit down. I'm in the middle seat. I'm not really excited because at this point, I've flown enough to know if I'm in the middle, somebody's on the left and the right. So I really wasn't too excited about that, but it didn't matter because I was on my way to Japan, right? Well, I'm looking at people as they come by and they keep going. I'm like, yep, not my 13-hour partner, not my 13-hour partner. And then this guy comes, and you can tell he's in the military because he's got the buzz cut, his body is cut, and he is looking pretty nice cut. So he starts to put his things in the overhead compartment, and I'm like, yeah, this is good. I'm gonna be able to talk to him. I'll make a friend on the way to Japan. And he sits down. He's by the window, which typically I would be jealous because I love the window seat. He puts a pillow up and puts his head down and goes to sleep. And I'm like, okay, not gonna be his companion for 13 hours. And so I continue, and I'm looking and people are coming. And then I see this guy and I'm like, oh my gosh, he has the biggest snowflakes falling from his hair onto his black jacket. And he's kind of looking around. So there's still a little hope that maybe he's either first class and just looking for overhead, or he's just looking for his seat. And wouldn't you know, he sits down and he's got the aisle seat next to me. And I was really kind of grossed out by the flakiness and the stuff on his collar or on his jacket. But when he sat down, I realized that was not the thing that I should be concerned about. He smelled horrible. And I thought, oh my gosh, how am I, like 13 hours is a long flight. And so I just sat there and I'm trying to be polite. And then he started to talk to me. He wanted to know, he turned and he looked at me and he said, why are you going to Japan? And oh my gosh, his breath was arresting. And I just quickly said, I'm going to a study abroad program. And I turned around. But then I thought, I cannot look at this guy who is sleeping for 13 hours and just totally ignore this person. So I realized it's time to turn up the charm, right? So first I stepped forward, I leaned forward like, okay, maybe I'm just gonna be able to like not be in smell zone. And I can do this for 13 hours until maybe I fall asleep like the guy next to me. But that wasn't working. It just was not working. And so I waited for someone who I would call a stewardess to come by. And I said, excuse me, stewardess. And she was going back and forth doing the pre-departure duties. And I said, excuse me, stewardess. And she looked at me and she goes, I am not a stewardess. Okay, I'm still in college, so I really don't know PC, and you look like a stewardess to me. Excuse the hell out of me. But I get sick. This is me turning on the charm. I get sick when I'm flying in the middle. Is there any way that I would be able to get another seat? Well, we have a pretty full flight, so I'll check and I'll get back to you. And I was like, okay, there's still hope. Let this woman check and get back to me. And she came back and she says, no, you're gonna need to sit in your seat. And so I sat back dejected because, again, I'm a college student. She is an adult. She's already been rude. I don't want to be rude back, but I need to figure something out. So as I'm looking around, I see that there is a seat in first class that was vacant. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to have to do to get this because it sure isn't money. I'm a college student, but somehow or another, if nobody takes the seat when they close the doors, that seat is mine. Well, I called her again and I said, ma'am, have you been able to check some things out? And she says, no. And I said, well, I think I'm really going to be sick. And she says, well, you can get off the plane. You don't have to take this flight if you don't want. And I was like, wow, so much for the friendly skies, right? So I sat back down dejected, trying to think of something else. And another lady who was 2 seats behind me, not close to first class, but 2 seats behind me, obviously smelled him also. And she was a little bit more seasoned in her charm than me. And so she went up to the flight attendant and she explained, I don't think she really gets sick. This guy just really smells bad. And then she came back and she was a little nicer and she said, ma'am, this is what I can do for you. We have something in the middle, but you'll be sitting next to a lady who has a baby and the baby's already crying. Or we have something all the way in the very back and it doesn't recline. I said, give me the seat that doesn't recline. I will take it. We will make it work, whatever has to happen. So I go to the back and I'm thinking, okay, not my charm, but charm work. I'm good, right? I get to the back and there's nobody in the middle. So it's just me. And there was a Japanese gentleman who was pretty kind. We didn't really speak the same language. We smiled at each other. We waved, we nodded, we bent, and the whole 9 yards. Well, when they got ready to serve us dinner, he got shrimp, I got chicken. And apparently he wasn't very hungry. He offered me shrimp. And I thought, oh, I like this guy. I don't know what I've done, but I've charmed my way into some shrimp and some chicken. And after they served dinner, another lady comes by and she wanted to know, would I like something to drink? And I thought, no, I'll just have water. Didn't know that on international flights, the alcohol was free, or otherwise I would have made a different decision. So the person across the aisle from me did want alcohol. So Miss Nicety, the one who told me I could leave the plane if I wanted it, she comes to serve the other person on the other side of the aisle to me alcohol, and she spills it all over me, like all over my legs. It's freezing back there too, by the way. So now I'm thinking, okay, I'm freezing, I'm wet, I'm going to get to Japan smelling like an alcoholic. What else could go wrong in this flight? But I'm afraid to ask because something else really just might go wrong in this flight. So we get to Japan, not too many other things uneventful happened. They did, without my complaining, they did offer me some additional mileage points. So I took it and I was happy. I didn't charm my way into that. We get to Japan, we deboard the plane, and we landed in a place called Osaka. We were on our way to Hiroshima. So we had to take a train to get to a bus to be able to get there. We get off the plane, we grab our luggage, we get on the train, on the bus, and we were not on the road more than 2 minutes before the bus gets into an accident. And not really an accident where somebody hit the bus or the bus hit somebody else. The front of it, up under the hood, caught on fire. So we have to evacuate in the middle of the street. We're standing in the middle of the street in Japan, place we don't know. Cars are zooming by, and we're waiting for another car to come and pick us up. We get to the train stop, the train is late, and we wait, and we wait, and we wait. By the time we get to the hotel, I thought, I need to let my mom know that I'm here and that I'm okay. So this was some years ago. So there were postcards of this little square piece of paper that you can write on, put a stamp on it, and send it off. I sent my mom a postcard, bought a postcard from the hotel, let her know. I said, I've got some stories to tell you about planes, trains, and automobiles. I just got to Japan, haven't really experienced much, but I'm sure the rest of my trip will be charming.
Anybody else want to tell a story? I want to make sure I give everyone an opportunity. Let me repeat the things. Anybody? I don't want to go too fast. Okay, so I'm letting them finish the judging. So I thought I was trying to find a joke on the internet. This is not my joke. You know, you heard about Prince Charming and Cinderella. Imagine Cinderella is 90. Things aren't as good as they used to be. She's sitting on the balcony petting her cat. Prince Charming's been long dead. She's been along a while. When all of a sudden, up pops a fairy godmother. She looks and she says, where have you been all these years? And the fairy godmother says, well, you know, I've been watching. You've been a good wife. You took care of that Prince Charming until he died. And I thought I should come back and grant you 3 wishes. Cinderella got to thinking. She said, now I need a lot of money. And right around her gold coins just piled up. She said, and I would like to be young again. And sure enough, things got snatched. Wrinkles was gone. Her posture was straight. She didn't have to use a cane anymore. Her teeth were all back, and her hair was blonde again instead of gray. One more wish. She was still petting that cat, and she looked at that cat and she said, I wish this cat would turn into a handsome young prince. And poof, sure enough, that cat was standing there in front of her and looked better than Prince Charming did every day of his life. The fairy godmother disappeared. They couldn't keep their eyes off each other. They started walking close. It was just like one of those commercials on TV, like the wind started blowing her hair back. And in slow motion, they made their way to each other. The young man leaned down and kissed her from her hand to her neck, to her lips, and he whispered in her ear, I bet you wish you hadn't had my balls cut off now. I got it off the internet. Okay. It was funny to me when it was the first one I had. At any rate, I want you to know that we have enjoyed your company. Another time? Whoa. Listen, we'd like to thank our judges, our timekeepers, our scorekeepers. We'd like to thank you for coming out. And remember, April 19th, 7 p.m., Jamaica Breeze, 4189 North Keystone. The topic is fashion. Our 3rd place winner is Shannon Sampson. Congratulations. Our 2nd place winners, I don't remember this name for 2nd place. Tim, where's Tim? Did I have a Tim? Oh, hey, Tim. I thought you disappeared on me. Tim and Tracy. It's a tie. And our first place winner tonight is Samantha Powers. Congratulations. I'd like all our winners to come up so that we can get your picture taken so we can put you in our social media. We'd like to thank all our college students. I enjoyed how she had to tell y'all what a postcard was. Did you know? Did you know? Anyway, thanks for coming out. I have a drawing now. Samantha's going to reach in. The name of the winner is